All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for podcast number 11. And guys, we have some really cool things that have happened recently.
Yes.
4K milestone on Patreon. Oh my gosh, new show slot poll. Go check out the recent video that we posted,
right?
And also our Patreon. Get your vote on in that. There's 10 awesome shows in that list.
They are very awesome.
But before we get into things, we got to give a shout out to Jackson,
yes,
the VIP Patreon supporter.
You're awesome,
dude,
bro.
You're legit.
Yeah.
I love your contributions in the Discord. I love interacting with you and stuff. It's great to have you, and we're so thankful.
Yes.
So appreciate it, dude. All right, so schedule.
Right.
We have some interesting things coming up, but other than that, it's very basic.
Right. So Tuesday, Hunter x Hunter. Wednesday, Psychopaths. Thursday, Hunter x Hunter again. Friday, My Hero Academia. Saturday, Ruby and JoJo's. Sunday, this is where it gets crazy. So we have Haikyuu, right? But then we also wait, there's more.
There's more.
We are going to be doing a Stranger Things
Season
2 stream on Riff.
Starting
at 11 p.m. or 11 a.m.
Right. So we'll have a video coming in a very short amount of time, probably in the next couple days, explaining what Riff is and how we'll be partnering with it. But if you have a Netflix account and you just go to our link for Riff, follow us there. It'll send you a notification when we're live, and you'll be able to watch Stranger Things Season 2 live with us while we're reacting to it. It's going to be really cool. And you won't have to sync up or anything. Riff does the whole thing for you.
Right.
And you can look that whole thing up now. I'll put a link in the description. It's riff.tv.
Right.
Other than that, though, we want to talk about a little bit about Ruby. Rooster Teeth has not, as of yet, released reactions from the YouTube block.
Right.
So once that happens, we will let you know. But as of right now, don't expect Ruby reactions to come up live necessarily on Saturday. It seems a couple people have had theirs go through, and we might try to figure out some way to get around the YouTube bot. But right now, it seems like it's just in Rooster Teeth's court to decide when do they want to click the button that we can do it. And
right now, their policy is 2 business days.
Right, so it should go by the end of tonight, so which would be good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's the gist of it. But story, we are talking about Exposition.
That's right.
The thing that you either makes or breaks a story.
You can't really avoid it all the time. Like, not 100%.
I would say you almost, you have never experienced a story without some level of exposition. Because even talking about what someone's thinking or feeling about is exposition. It is the lightest light form of exposition.
And the best exposition is exposition that you don't notice.
Or you don't notice until it's done and you're like, I just listened to a bunch of exposition.
Yeah, right.
Oh.
That was actually pretty good.
That was kind of good.
Yeah.
So we're gonna cite 2 examples of good exposition, and while we're talking about that, we'll weave into where they could have gone wrong in a lot of ways.
Right, yes, because exposition is one of those areas where most stories go wrong.
I would say a large percentage of stories slip up in the exposition side of things. So I'm going to cite one that's not anime, and then you can bring things back to anime with yours. I'm going to cite Star Wars. Guys, one of the things that's really impressive about Star Wars is this is a universe that has captivated hundreds of millions of people. But I would say that the points in which the show, as a series, got into its really good high points was actually some of its exposition. Now, I said some because I want to make the point that this is not the perfect example of exposition. This is where exposition was done really well and not so well in the same thing. When Qui-gon starts talking about midichlorians, that was a universal fandom outcry of just, please don't do this. But the thing is that type of exposition was already done.
And it was really good.
And it was really good with Yoda.
Yeah.
Now, I want to bring in Yoda from Empire Strikes Back. So if you haven't seen Star Wars, that's okay. There's a lot of people that haven't.
Is it okay?
I'm saying because right now you can redeem it and you can go and watch, at the very least, watch A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. And then I would watch the prequels as well, but at least watch those, because Empire Strikes Back is one of the greatest movies of all time.
It's just about the definition of how to do a sequel right.
Right. So in that, there's a point where Luke, the protagonist, talks with the old wizened mentor, Yoda. And Yoda is constantly giving him exposition in the form of riddles, in the forms of little tongue twisters, in the form of little kind of it almost seems like little kids' rhymes and stuff.
Sure.
But it's giving the philosophy of this universe a form in a very simple, perfectly executed way, to where there is a scene, I would say, that kind of capitulates the philosophy of the good versus evil battle in the scene where Luke goes into the cave. Now, I would posit that this is actually a form of exposition. Now, it's not talking, but it's a version of showing...
But still being exposition.
Because you're actually telling Luke about the struggle of the light versus the dark, the connection potentially to him and Vader. There's a whole lot of layers to that. But then, where he gets into, what the Force is, how Luke is, basically someone who the whole galaxy is riding their hope on, kind of a chosen one type thing. It ends up being really fantastic. Another excellent example of good exposition is Obi-Wan talking to Luke about his father.
Yeah.
And also Darth Vader.
Right.
Two completely separate characters, in A New Hope. And the acting on Sir Alec Guinness's face as he's conveying this kind of backstory to Luke, you see that there's all this other stuff that this old man is carrying around, kind of like baggage, and it's like, I want to know your story. And exposition should do that. It should encourage your curiosity and want you to know more. And it should also communicate something clear and concrete. Not necessarily just something that's right from a certain point of view, Obi-Wan. Yeah. But also, you don't have to have exposition solely about dumping facts.
Right.
And
yes, exposition can very much be put through some kind of emotional lens or a philosophical lens, like in the case of Yoda. Because the fact that they made it like so that they were telling stories, either Obi-Wan telling an actual story, or Yoda telling like giving little almost like proverbs or little teachings, right? Those kinds of things make it way more engaging, because it's not just like, this person is this tall, they have these abilities, and
If exposition feels like you're reading a history book, you're doing it wrong.
Right.
This person lived at this date, they died at this date, and then they went on and their ancestors did this. No, that's not good exposition.
Right.
Exposition has an engaging aspect to it. I would say exposition that's outside of dialogue is already kind of crossing a little bit of a line. You know that exposition starts to look like exposition typically when someone starts monologuing. I would say that Yoda gets around this, but he keeps everything very bite-sized and short, and he gives opportunities for Luke to give feedback. When he starts talking about what is the dark side, is it stronger? And he's like, no, but the quicker, easier, more seductive. There's a whole bit put into that in just 3 words, and that's something that I would say makes the exposition in Star Wars efficient. 1, because it's a movie and not a TV show. But 2, also simple enough to where anyone can understand it, even if they don't have extreme vocabulary capacity. Because I would say exposition is one of the most dull things when it's done wrong in a story. Because you're like, I want to understand, but it's so boring, and I also don't even understand what they're talking about.
Right, a lot of times exposition will be made to be worse and drag on longer because they're wanting to make sure that everyone's on the same page. Right. They're talking about something that's a little bit complicated, and they're basically making sure that even if someone doesn't normally follow along those sorts of things, that they can still follow through it. Yes. And that can be good in some cases, but in other cases you can lose people because they'll just end up getting really, really bored.
Right. That's an example of where Star Wars in the prequels fails a little bit with the Senate hearings and stuff like that. When they start talking about Trade Federation blockades, it's actually, I would say, relatively interesting, but it's handled in such a way that you really get sick of it quite quickly. And also, in terms of being able to understand it, falls into a lot of the traps that science fantasy stuff does, where you hear a bunch of really long words that aren't real, and you're like, the Trade Federation and the banking clan and okay, Supreme Chancellor Valorum, I guess that's you. That kind of stuff starts to go, okay, now you're moving into more average to mediocre exposition. When it's exposition that's talking directly to the audience, and it's having all those other problems as well, I think that's when you've really started to go into bad exposition.
You need to have a reason for the exposition to be in the story. A lot of times people will do this by having someone that is ignorant of what's going on, so that they need to kind of have it explained to them. Harry Potter's a great example of
Harry Potter's a fantastic example of that.
They make them just, Harry doesn't know anything, and they're going through this world, so they're showing at the same time, but then they're also explaining it to him.
And that's an example of, I'd say, it's not that the exposition in that is bad, that's an example of where there's so much of it, you get a little bit kind of like, oh, here we go, here's the part that Harry doesn't understand. It feels formulaic. So,
and even then, that's mostly on rewatching rather than like your first time through.
For sure, because there's so much wonder attached with it. And speaking of kind of the whole, kind of wonder attached with it, that is a huge bit with Star Wars as well.
Yes,
it adds to the showing aspect.
They leave a lot of mystery, like with when Yoda's talking. There is this sense of wonder, and that it's something more than just the direct tangibles that a lot of times are what exposition is comprised of.
It's what separates it from something like Lord of the Rings' exposition, where Galadriel gives basically a history lesson. And
that's not a bad thing necessarily, because it's in the very beginning of the story, but like when it gets into like later parts, and then like Treebeard's droning on, or
Elrond and Galadriel having telepathic communications.
Exactly,
stuff.
Or the whole Council of Elrond chapter in the books.
So let's bring things back to anime.
So
you have a very unique one here.
So this is Haruhi, Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya. And for the exposition, in general, this show does some pretty good exposition, but there's a specific part where they do the exposition that I want to bring attention to. And that's basically when the premise of Haruhi is that basically there's a girl that is the all-powerful creator and god of the universe, but she doesn't know it. And then the main character is just, your average Joe. And then he gets pulled into all that and crazy stuff ensues. And there's the point where basically he, at this point, sees Haruhi as just being, like, weird, right? Like, just very weird. And this person basically brings him to, their place to explain things, but you don't quite understand that that's what's going to happen yet. Because at this point in the story, you don't actually know that Haruhi is God. You don't know about aliens, time travelers, and espers, right? And so you're wondering, like, what's going on here? What's, why is this person bringing him here, and, and what's going on? And then they open their mouth and they start talking about how the data integration thought entity has been surveying this cosmos for, like some time or other, and all this crazy stuff, and that, Haruhi and her are not actual, like, human beings. They're something beyond that. And the person's just like,
huh? What?
And like they built up to that exposition.
They did.
So you know it's coming. So you're primed for it. If you're not ready for the exposition when it comes, it's
pretty bad.
It can get pretty bad.
Yeah.
But they also made it so bizarre, such a stark contrast from what you've had so far.
That's true.
That it is, and this kind of, it's a jolt. And this kind of world building you certainly couldn't do by showing, really. So it was something that was very much justified. And because the character was ignorant of what was going on, It works really well, and the audience is also ignorant, so it just fits. And then the character itself, here's the other thing that I love about how Haruhi did exposition. And a lot of other anime have tried to copy this, usually poorly, but the person who usually gives the exposition is Nagato, and she's a robot. So it makes, like, when she just spits out data, basically, it makes sense, because she's a robot. That's what she'd do. She's completely, like, expressionless all the time anyways, so she'll just be like, so this is the deal. This is what we need to do. there you go.
And it would be up to the main character to kind of add in a little bit of emotion, like, whoa, come on, slow down here.
What was that part? Yeah.
You need to say that again. Because he's still processing, in as much as we are, what's going on. So it actually slows down the scene in the right way by bringing the focus back to, let's try and understand what you're talking about.
Right.
Because I don't get it. Also, as a meta way, I, as the audience, I don't get what you're talking about.
Right.
Because I'm primed and ready, but I'm hearing things like the data thought entity is monitoring the cosmos. I'm like, okay, what is the data thought entity thing?
Yep.
And they ask those questions, and those questions sort of get answered.
Yeah.
But they also do leave some mystery in there.
And one of the other things that they do is that, so in this specific exposition dump, they change the camera angles up in some really weird ways.
They do. That's true.
And why they're doing it, you're not sure. Like, at this point, the main character's been drinking a bunch of like tea, and you're not sure if it's been like drugged or something to make him forget all this later, or to just make him more receptive or something, so he doesn't freak out. But it keeps you visually engaged, because a lot of the time, especially in anime, when they're delivering exposition, it's just a still image with moving lips.
It is really, really kind of immersion breaking when that happens.
Yeah.
I would say there's a couple shows that are guilty of this, but it's not like, it's not just a budget issue and stuff. It's them basically saying, all right, we need to shove in this data for the viewers. And you can kind of feel like you're some kind of like condenser or whatever thing, and there's this machine just going pushing exposition down your throat, and you're like, okay, and fine.
And here's the other thing that I love about the way Nagato does exposition in Haruhi, is that she is, psychically connected or whatever to the data integration thought entity that's outside of time and space, and does all this crazy stuff. So it makes sense that she would know all of this stuff.
True.
I saw an anime, I'm not going to say which one it was, where they had a character that was basically a Nagato ripoff, like straight up, and they would do these long-winded exposition dumps that were just boring, and it'd be the one still image with the moving lips and stuff. But there were points where I would wonder, how does this character know this? They have we have no reason to know why they would know all these things, or that jump in logic right there, like that.
Yeah.
Why are we sitting here? Like why do they believe this exposition? You know. And
the build up
really
to
unfortunate when
the build up in context to exposition is almost as important as the exposition execution itself.
Right.
One of the things that a lot of people get in trouble with in exposition, as you mentioned, is having it in the beginning, but having no real contextual like point to it because it's at the beginning. But you can actually have context within the exposition set for the exposition that's coming.
Right.
And that's basically what something like Lord of the Rings did, is they said, this is the context. The very first phrase is, it began with the forging of the great rings, and then they went and did the exposition.
Right.
They're basically saying, hey guys, this is the beginning of the story. This is important to get for the context of the rest of the story.
Right.
So please bear with us as we exposit here.
And with that, they didn't just have Galadriel talking.
No.
They showed an epic battle. They showed like some of the most like just wow epic stuff from the whole first movie.
They basically showed the exposition from the perspective of what she's talking about. So you're having her almost narrate it.
Exactly.
In an anime, you could have production issues with that. But what Jacob was saying was so great in Haruhi was actually just camera angle switching.
Yeah, just little things like that.
Which isn't that hard in terms of making. You don't need to make some massive CGI or massive battle or something where you switch scenes entirely to draw something completely new. Changing the perspective a little bit does a lot.
And one other thing, in the case of Haruhi, that exposition dump, it wasn't even done completely in the second episode. They waited until the second episode, the very end of the second episode, and they just had that first little bit with the first bit of like crazy, like, wait, what are you saying? To then get you hooked into the rest of it. So you're actually looking forward
to more exposition.
And they didn't give it to you right off the bat. So by the time it actually came around, you wanted that exposition.
Which is really funny, because I walked into Haruhi really expecting not to like it, that was one of my favorite parts in the whole
right.
show, because I knew the premise, but I didn't know anything about this data integration thought entity. I didn't know how integrally tied these other seemingly high school characters were to the rest of the story. And I thought they were kind of the token troupe of characters that are surrounded by the main two characters.
Right. And they totally are.
They totally are, but they're there for very specific plot reasons that get exposited in those 2 episodes. Right. So it's all in all pretty good. It didn't really keep me from liking the show enough to recommend it to a lot of people, but it's one of the best moments in the show.
Right, that was one of those parts that his eyes lit up a bit at that.
I was just like, oh, tell me more. I lean forward. That's another thing. If you're watching a show, a movie, or engaging in something, and you feel the exposition coming on, but you still lean forward a little bit, and you're like,
that's a sign that it's good.
That's a sign that it's good, because you're getting someone to engage with the potential and the content of the well, maybe at least the potential of the exposition.
Yes.
I would say that exposition sometimes gives content, and you're like, that's... but it's wrapped in this exposition package. But if you get excited about the potential of the exposition, that's good, because then it's them saying, okay, we'll give you the opportunity to build upon this in the future with whatever story content comes from it.
Right. Getting permission from the audience to do exposition is a really big deal.
It is a big deal.
If you get that, then they're on board with it, and it's okay.
Right. I would say that that's maybe a little bit of where Star Wars had a little bit of an upper hand in that you already had a movie of time before they really went into the exposition regarding the Force.
Exactly, and it was all mysterious and mystical, so giving that little bit of exposition without going into, like, too many concrete details or whatever.
Right, or even like later when Palpatine starts expositing about how all this is according to Keikaku.
Yeah.
And you have all fallen into my trap.
Exactly.
Like, that's expositing, but it's done in such a way to where we've been building up to this moment in particular.
Yep.
So it feels right.
Yeah.
So great stuff, you guys. We're moving along really fast for this one. We're going to try and keep this one under 45 minutes.
Right. We've never done that before.
We've never done that, I don't think
so. Now Q&A. Little Duck is the first one. How do you correctly handle the middle section of a story so it doesn't go stale, or in the case of mid-season finale / plot twist, completely overshadow the actual finale?
I've seen that be a problem. Yep. I would say the main way to do it is not have the mid-season finale plot twist thing be final. Have it be a thing where it builds up from the previous bit of story, but not from the beginning. It takes the build up from, say, the beginning middle to the end middle, and kind of compiles that together. But it leaves enough on the table to where you have still a lot of anticipation for what things are going to happen moving forward. And I would say plot twists, make that better than actual finales. Avatar The Last Airbender in Book 2 had a very solid finale, but it was actually more of a plot twist where it was like, whoa, did Aang just die?
Yeah.
You know, it was really unclear. No, I'm just kidding.
And I would say that is excellent that you brought that up, because one of the things a lot of the times that I like when I think of that question, I think that the problem might be that the story is resolving that mid-season finale or whatever, as opposed to basically adding something to the chaotic mess of things that need to get resolved.
Sure.
That way then it can get resolved at the end.
Right. Very good point. Freya K6 asks, Freya K asks, what's your favorite method of transport from any fictional franchise? That's a tough one. I really like the whole autonomous technology stuff, but I'm gonna go old school. I just love Appa. I don't care if he's stinky or not. Like, that just sounds fantastic.
I would say either 3D maneuver gear from Attack on Titan, or any kind of flying invincible armor
with a jetpack.
Anything
like that. Yeah. Basically like Boba Fett. Or
Boba Fett.
Any Mandalorian.
That may be something that's in my book.
Yeah.
Because I love it.
Jomade413, of course, asks a question. If you have $1 billion, what would you do with it, and what will be your first thing you will buy? Well, I feel like most people, when they think about their first $1 billion, they have their small thing that's like, ooh, that would be fun to buy.
Right.
Like, I would love to have a Tesla car. But in terms of what I would first do with it, I would pay off a lot of people's debt. A lot of people that I know and care about, like my parents and stuff.
one of the first things I would do with it, other than, investing in whatever, is I would be like, $1 billion, I'll put 200 of that into making an awesome blockbuster, like, because I want to make stories, right? So now if I
have the money.
Now I have the money to not just
some.
make books, but to make like awesome special effects like movies.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, so Alibek Kulembetov.
We probably butchered that.
Yeah, sorry. Has any of the shows that you're watching finished broken into your top 5 or top 10 favorite animes yet, or maybe has the potential to do so? Yeah.
The main thing is that I would say they have to finish in order to fully break into that level.
That's the problem, is that I would say the ones that we finished, no. The ones that we are watching currently, like MHA, Psychopaths, they could get into our top 10.
They definitely
top
could.
5 is really hard to get into.
Yeah, top 5 is stupid hard.
I don't know if there's really anything that's going to come out again that will be...
Right. Like, I don't know if we even know what's in our top 5 other than Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood.
Oh, yeah, right. Duh. Yeah.
It'd be tough.
Yeah.
James Krause asks, hello, what do you think about Roy's revenge arc in FMAB? Oh, we've talked about this in our podcast. It's fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. I would say that if you want to look at a good, non-distracting side plot with a supporting, like a side character, essentially. I could say Roy is the closest thing to a side main character in the ensemble cast of FMAB. But, Edward and Al are the main characters.
Right.
That little side arc is very
So
believable. Good. It's very consistent. It has a nice progression as he goes to people that have nothing to do with it, to capitulating when he actually does find Envy. That episode or two, those 2 episodes, I think, where he finds Envy.
It's so good. It's just, what do we think about it? Yes.
Yes. All the good things.
This guy actually, I can't believe he did this. He was trying to get somebody into Brotherhood.
No, I had to prove a point that you can't introduce someone to a fight out of context. And I said, have you seen FMAB? And they're like, no, I haven't. I'm like, do you mind if I spoil, the worst, the spoiler ever? And they're like, no. I'm like, yeah, it doesn't matter because it's just going to be out of context. I'm like, fine. So I showed them the fight between Envy and Mustang. They're like, I'm going to watch this. I'm like, yeah, but now you're ruined. And let me know when you finish the show, how you feel about that. So, yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Loki the Trickster God. What fictional character comes to mind when you think of great character development?
You want to go first?
Zuko.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, Zuko is fantastic. Yep. Since you've said Zuko, I'm going to say Nagato from Haruhi.
Okay.
Lots of breadcrumb trails with the character development, and I really like how it's handled. I haven't really seen anything like it. But yeah, cool. Zuko is amazing.
Yeah, I feel like Zuko's the easy answer, and it's
it's
just true.
But it really is.
It really is.
His development is fantastic.
All right. Daw6 asks, what books are you currently reading and want to read soon? Well, I've been reading a couple things here and there. I'm rereading actually some of Game of Thrones.
Those are good.
Not the first one, Dance of Dragons, but in particular.
Gotcha.
But in terms of wanting to read soon, I want to read some more Neil Gaiman.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he has good stuff.
Yeah.
I am really looking forward to. We're both big fans of the Red Rising trilogy.
Yes.
And Iron Gold is going to be coming out very soon. So I am definitely going to read that.
Yeah. And you're more of writing right now rather than reading.
Right. Yeah. So, what am I currently reading? My own story. Really.
My own story. Yeah, it's actually when you're writing and you're in the thick of it, reading other people's stuff is really distracting sometimes.
It can also be a little bit depressing.
It can be a little bit depressing.
Because you're looking at the final polished work when you're still working with the
your
thing
rough
that you're
drafts and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
And your edits.
Yeah.
Okay, this question is hilarious. I love it.
By Sean Kenny.
If the two of you were to rule Westeros, which one of you would be king and which would be the hand of the king? Which roles are you better suited for? Which would be more fulfilling? Well, this is funny, Jacob, because do you think... Because I don't think we should do it at the same time, but maybe we should point which one of us do you think would be? We'll point to either ourselves or the other person. Which one do you think would be the better hand of the king? We'll start that. 1, 2, 3. I knew it. Yeah. I knew it. Yeah. Neither one of us want to be the king.
Well, the king's gonna die.
Yeah.
And to that extent, okay, I would not mind being king of Westeros. I would have some ideas.
Here's the thing that I think is pretty telling, is that Jacob has a very clear understanding of systems. And I think he would look at the seven great families, the whole setup of Westeros and Song of Ice and Fire, and he would go, okay, there's a whole bunch of systems here. I want the people that are going to work best with me with those systems will get together and we'll make this happen, and I will rule, and it will be perfect. I am going to be the one that gets him those people.
Sure.
When it comes down to it, I'm better with people, he's better with systems.
Right, and that was actually why I was thinking that I would probably be a better hand of the king, because he can be the leader that sways the people, and then I can be the one doing all the systems, making sure everything works, making sure.
Yeah, maybe it's both, because it's really tough. Because I could see that with being the hand of the king, you would interact with a lot more people directly, and the king would be this indirect thing that would give kind of prepared speeches and stuff.
Okay, yeah.
But in terms of if you ever had to go to war, I would want you at the front of the battle line rather than me. And I think also that you would be more inspiring in front of the battle line with how you would do in an actual fight. Okay, also, cool. You would get to wear the badass armor.
I would not.
And the big sword. Yep. And I would definitely be okay with playing second fiddle to you. I don't feel like the thing of us would be more of like which one has more authority or something.
Right. I think we'd be just a badass combo ruling Westeros either way.
Either way.
Yeah.
I could see also us being a little bit ruthless here and there by being like, all right, that family, they're done. Like we're just gonna get rid of them.
They're just a problem child.
Let's this system has too many players. Too many
variables. Let's simplify the equation.
Let's get at least 3 other people on our side. Let's just get rid of them. Hey, it's much easier now. I mean, if we were in that universe, it'd be really interesting. I don't know how long we would last, though.
Which kingdoms would we have to get rid of? Like Dorne?
No, I would actually see it being more of a thing with the
specific players in the
the specific players involved. But I would say it would be either Pike, freaking the
why is brain fart?
The Iron Islands people.
Right.
Yeah.
Duh, yeah.
It would either be them, because they're
easy.
just raiders and pillagers, and it would be relatively easy. I think that sieging them would be dumb, but it would be a thing of, all right, we're just going to just completely cease everything with them,
right,
and have them just leave. And then they would go to Essos or something like that.
Sure.
And they wouldn't like us, but that's okay.
Right.
I would immediately ally with Lannisters, Tyrells, Starks, get them all together.
Right.
It would be more of a thing of, can we set up a direction for Westeros that doesn't involve war after that?
Sure.
But it'd be kind of interesting, because we don't know what timeline we'd be set in either. So
that's true. Do we have to worry about the Night King coming?
Or Targaryens? Or
that too.
Like that as well. Yeah, it kind of fits into the fact that I think when we said if we were to be actual, if we were to be of a certain house alignment, unfortunately, we would probably end up being Lannisters.
Because we're tall.
We're born blonde. Lucky in the U.S. We're tall, blonde, and
although if this was during Targaryen rule, I would totes want to be the king, because then I'd also get the dragon. That would be awesome.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. And I would be the hand of the king from the Lannisters or something.
Sure.
That is bringing all the advice and money in or something like that. I don't know. That's a fun question, though.
Yeah, it is.
All right, well, that was a good one, Jacob. We finished this in 35 minutes. What? All right, guys, thanks for sticking around. We're looking at making these podcasts shorter in general.
Right.
But this one is probably going to be one of the shorter ones for as we test out kind of a good format and stuff. Right. All right, but make sure to check out all the news coming in for our channel. Of course, there's the new show slot.
And pull for that.
Be on the lookout for more cool stuff. And we'll see you again later. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all next time.